The most indispensable ingredient in Italian cooking. Perfect acidity, sweetness, and aromatic compounds. Always takes a dish to another level. The humble tomato. The tomato. Tomatoes. Approachable. They're sophisticated. What can you make with them? Tomato salad. You can do tomato soup. You can do tomato salsa. The dish I want to prepare for you today is called spaghetti alla matriciana. They're just downright beautiful, I think. So I'm cutting guanciale, which is house-cured pork jowl, and creates this amazing emulsification of pork fat and olive oil. I would honestly consider the tomato a superfood. So the aromatic compounds, they're found in the skin, the sweetness in the flesh, and the acidity in the center. Very cool. Most people don't think of how important tomato paste is in classical French and Italian cooking. One of the most fragrant parts of the tomato is actually the stem and the stalk and the leaves around here. So when you remove these, you can add them back into the sauce, which makes them incredibly aromatic. What I like to do when I'm doing it with a meat dish, when I want tomato sauce and meat together, is I puree the tomato sauce with vegetables. I just find that adding a depth of flavor to my tomato sauce. I use peppers, a little bit of onion, some carrot, something I learned from my grandmother. And whenever she was making sauce with meat, that's how she prepared her tomato sauce. It's important to talk about the quality of a tomato and what we should be buying, I think. An heirloom tomato grown locally near where you live and where you consume them will also have had the chance to develop the largest amount and volume of those compounds because they're left to ripen on the vine. You'll notice that I've got a scoop of sauce, but I've also got pork fat, and I'm also going to add even more olive oil. It's going to be this perfect, rich balance of just this unctuous, multiple fats, right? And then salt and a little heat. You know, these are all sort of classic flavors that you can find in a lot of Italian food. Okay, I'm building my sauce, the garlic, the olive oil, and the chili flakes. It's now time to drop some fresh spaghetti. One thing I can't stress enough is that a tomato should never go in a fridge. The cool air breaks it down, it becomes soft and mealy, and it literally becomes a shadow of its former self. So there it is, a little spaghetti alla matriciana. And I think, you know, when I look at a dish like this, I start to salivate because I really believe that the tomato is a good solid meat substitute, and it plays into your palate the same way that a steak does. I really believe that the humble tomato needs to be exalted to the top of the food chain in any kitchen. It's a tomato. To talk about a hothouse. What a hothouse does is it allows us to lengthen the time throughout the year that we can enjoy a local tomato. If you're buying a tomato in a hothouse grown locally, they let them ripen on the vine, they feed it natural nutrients and fertilizers, then you're going to get a wonderful tomato that's grown in a hothouse. Now, when you're buying canned tomatoes, the key to the quality of a tomato, whether it is a raw tomato or whether you're buying it in a can, is that they are being picked at the precise time of ripeness. The difference between $2.99 and $3.99 aren't that great, so just spend the extra money, get the good tomato. And one thing to look for a tomato that doesn't have any calcium or calcium product in it, because they put calcium in to keep the tomato firm, and it also makes it tougher to break down. It makes it tougher to break down when you're cooking and tougher to break down when you digest. One other thing I want to mention too is that you know, when you're buying a tomato in the winter, the reason it's so dull and flavorless is because they're often picked green. So they're grown in hotter parts of the world, shipped green. They ripen with the addition of gases and compounds on the truck as they get to your whatever part of the world you live in. And so they're picked when they haven't had the chance to develop those flavors, and they will never develop them on the truck.